Katie with CF Yogi. Welcome to Mixed Levels Vinyasa Yoga. Tonight we're going to be doing a practice that's based on kind of the yin and the yang of strength and flexibility. And we're also going to be kind of focusing on twists and core strength as we move through these poses. And so since we do have someone with a PICC or accessed port today, I'm not doing any upper body weight bearing or very, very minimal with some options. So we'll start in a standing position, finding our mountain pose with feet hip width apart. And we can just rock back and forth from heel to toes, getting comfortable with those corners of the feet, feeling nice and stable. And then just bending the knees and the ankles, letting them move a little bit, maybe noticing if our ankles are popping. That sometimes happens in these standing positions as we wake up from the ankles and the low body. And then rolling the shoulders down away from the ears. And then meeting in our mountain pose. On our inhale, lifting the crown of the head tall to the sky, imagining that there's a string lifting the crown of our head tall. So we're growing taller, like we're creating space between each one of our vertebrae, stacking them on top of each other. And rolling those shoulders down away from the ears, letting the fingertips reach toward the ground with nice wide open palm. And turning the attention to our breath, each inhale lifting the crown of the head taller to the sky. Every exhale, shoulders coming down away from the ears, feeling that groundedness under the feet. Every inhale lifting up, elongating. Every exhale, grounding down. And just noticing our breath without judgment. What do we notice about our breath today? Is it through the nose or the mouth? Is it fast or slow? Is it deep or shallow? Myra, can you make sure that everyone's microphone is muting? I'm hearing a sound like the ocean and it might be someone's breath, so I just want to make sure that we're all muted.
I think it might have been me.
Okay, thank you. And noticing the sensations of the breath. If we can breathe in through the nose, inhaling through the nose, feeling that cool air through the sinuses, down to the back of the throat. Noticing how our exhale feels different. The temperature of the air, the heat on the back of our throat. Feeling that sensation of release and warmth. On our next inhale, releasing the belly, letting it expand with the breath. Exhaling, feeling it come back in toward the spine. Inhaling, deep belly breath. Exhaling, feeling it come back in. And flowing with the breath at your own pace. If it helps, keeping the hand on the belly. And oftentimes, we walk around with our bellies really tight, lifting up and in. Especially women, we want to have a nice trim figure, and so we hold our bellies in. This is our chance to really let it go. So inhaling, really letting those abdominal muscles relax. Exhaling, they re-engage, lifting back up. Inhaling, letting them go. Exhaling, releasing. Moving that deep belly breath at your own pace, maybe counting to 3 or 4 on the inhale, matching that count on the exhale. Now bringing the air up, adding another part to our breath, first inhaling into the belly, and then bringing it up into the chest, letting the chest lift. Exhaling, letting it all go. 3-part breath into the belly, then to the chest, and letting go. Now in our 3-part breath, moving at that same steady pace, but seeing if we can increase that moment between the inhale and the exhale. Without holding the breath, just letting every bit of air trickle in. And that's really the moment when we can expand our lungs to their fullest. Two more breaths. And beginning to add a little bit of motion to our breath. On our exhale, closing our hand in a fist. Inhale, opening it up, spreading the fingers wide. Exhaling, closing the fist. Inhaling, opening it up. So now the motion of our hands are mimicking what's happening in our lungs. Meeting with those hands open. Inhaling, circle sweeping the hands overhead, bringing the palms together. Exhaling the hands through heart center back to the sides. Inhaling, circle sweeping up. Exhaling through heart center. Flowing a few times with your breath. Exploring that range of motion in our shoulders. Calling our attention to our hands as we feel the sensation of our palms touching. And meeting with our hands at heart center. And pausing for a moment. Setting an intention for our practice today. Focusing on the small things by just choosing one word. A single word that captures our intention for our practice tonight. Maybe it's gratitude, comfort, discovery, clarity. Finding a word that speaks to you today on your mat. Holding that intention in mind. On our next exhale, letting go of judgment. Our next, letting go of competition. And once more, letting go of expectation. Exploring our own unique practice on our mat tonight. And releasing our hands. If you have a block, go ahead and grab the block. And if you don't have a block, we can also use a pillow or just something that you can squeeze and feel a little bit of sturdiness. We're going to place it right between our legs so that we can squeeze that block into place. So as we're in our mountain pose, pressing down through the feet and starting to lift up those muscles inside of the thighs to squeeze that block, and starting to feel some engagement across the pelvic floor. So we haven't really delved into what the pelvic floor is. The Sanskrit word is mula bandha for a root lock. So when we squeeze against that block and feel that lifting up kind of really low in the pelvis, that's our root lock. So women, if you've heard of Kegels, That's that same sensation. Men, that might not help you visualize what it is, but I've been told on good authority that if you imagine like you're wearing your swim trunks, you're walking into the water, and you're at that moment when you kind of suck everything up and in because that water is going to be really cold. That's kind of that sensation, and that works for women too. So it's that lifting up, but it's really far down so that we can still have that breath moving in our belly. So it's kind of that balance between tension and relaxation. So once we have that nice stable core of support, our Mula Bandha root lock, inhaling, lifting up. Exhaling, let's do a few more of those arm circles. Inhaling up, exhaling through, just feeling actively like we're pressing through the feet. And then we'll move this into our chair flow. Exhaling, sinking the hips back, letting the hands come into heart center. So we're really in that same stable position. Inhaling back up, hands to our sides. Exhaling to chair. Inhaling up. And I'll turn sideways so you can see what's happening with that chair. I'm sitting my hips back, almost like I'm going to tap my bum on a little chair that's a little bit too far behind me. So my weight's in my heels and my toes can wiggle up away from the mat. Notice how my back is in a pretty neutral position. My shoulders aren't rounding down, lifting that heart center up. Inhaling back to mountain. Exhaling to our chair. Inhaling up. Exhaling, chair pose. Flowing through that pattern at your own pace of your breath. Noticing how secure that block helps us feel. Bringing our awareness to that root lock. Two more breaths. And meeting in that chair pose, holding that for, let's shoot for 3 breaths. Inhaling back up to our mountain. Inhaling, circle sweeping up. Exhaling, bending the knees, hinging at the hips, but this time we'll swan dive down to a forward fold. We're not going to stay here long because we've got some people with concern about inversions tonight. So lifting up, coming halfway up to our monkey pose. Nice flat back, neutral spine. And we can start to straighten the legs a little bit at a time. Releasing some tension on that low back. Bending the knees, sitting the hips back. Inhaling, circle sweeping back up to mountain. Exhaling, hands through heart center. Now I'll break down a few more poses into our chair flow. Inhaling, circle sweeping up. Exhaling, swan diving, forward fold. Inhaling to monkey. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, circle sweeping back up, extended mountain. Exhaling to chair. Starting that sequence over. Inhaling to mountain. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, monkey. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, circle sweeping up. Exhaling to chair. So it's 6 postures. We're inhaling when we lift, exhaling when we lower. It's okay if you get lost and you can't remember what comes next. Just remember that rule: inhale, lift, exhale, lower, and you'll be fine. And you can just stay with me until you learn the flow, but feel free to close your eyes and make it a moving meditation in your own time with your own breath. And we'll meet in our chair pose when we get to the end of that cycle. Now, working on this a few more breaths, still nice and strong. If you'd like to explore a balancing chair, seeing if we can rock onto our toes and lift the heels off of the mat. Now making sure that when we do that, we don't round the shoulders. We're only coming to that posture if we can keep the spine in that nice lifted neutral position and then float up the heels. Setting them down, inhaling to mountain. Let's take the block, setting it aside. Shake it out for a moment. Ooh, maybe grab some water. Might have started to build up a little bit of heat in our body. And we'll revisit that same flow, but without the block in place. We're going to try and recreate those same sensations that we had, that nice stability through the core, only without the block. So it's all coming from our own internal muscle strength. So pressing down those feet, feeling that lifting and engaging. Moving through that same chair flow. Inhaling, circle sweeping up. Exhaling, swan diving, forward fold. Inhaling, monkey. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, reverse swan dive. Exhaling, chair. Let's try 2 more times. No block, really focusing on that lifting and engaging. That root lock, Mula Bandha. Meeting in our chair pose, 1 more time. Now if you're not sure if you want to try that balancing chair, just trying to float 1 heel up at a time, which is a little bit easier without the block in place. And then maybe you feel ready to try floating both, keeping that spine in the same neutral position. Inhaling back to mountain. If you want some challenge, seeing if we can stay on the toes. And shaking it out. All right, so we worked on having that stability in that, kind of square hip position. Let's now open up to a straddle. So bringing our toes out to the corners of the room. And if we are to bend our knees, they're tracking the same direction as the toes. So they're not collapsing in. And also we have enough distance in our feet that the knees are going to be over the ankles. So we actually want to have them a little bit wide, almost like a sumo wrestler. We can shift our weight side to side. Meeting on our 5-pointed star, hands up toward the corners of the room. Exhaling, bringing those elbows in toward the sides as we sink down. Inhaling, back up, 5-pointed star. Exhaling and inhaling. So now we're letting those hips open up and seeing what they're asking for in this position. Do they like that openness? Do they want to try going a little bit deeper? Two more breaths. And we'll meet in that lower position. See if we can hold this for a couple of breaths, maybe taking the hands out to the side, palms facing up. And then inhaling back up to our 5-pointed star. Taking our hands to our hips and noticing when we come into a bent position, almost like when we were in our monkey pose before, when we start to lean forward, feeling that crease where the top of the thigh meets the torso, and placing a finger into that crease so that when we start to fold forward, we feel that crease deepen. And that way we can make sure that we're bending from we're hinging from the hips, we're not rounding the back. So just feeling what that feels like for a minute. And then we're going to come into a similar flow to what we just did. Again, toes out toward the corners of the room, but inhaling up to 5-pointed star, and then hinging forward, sweeping the hands down toward the ground. Inhaling up, exhaling down, really focusing on that hip hinge so that our chest is leading in that bend. We're not rounding our back at all. Two more breaths. And meeting in our 5-pointed star, taking our hands together. Now I'm going to show you a little something. This is actually from kids yoga, but it's actually one of my favorite flows. I think it's really fun. It's called the breath of joy. So we're going to be in that low kind of squatting position, taking our hands together, exhaling forward, and then inhale, tossing our hands up to the sky. Exhale, inhale. And you just can't help but smile. It's just such a joyful emotion, like you're tossing a bunch of confetti up in the air. Two more breaths. Meeting in that 5-pointed star, walking, toe heeling our feet back underneath the hips. All right, feel warm? Feel like we strengthened our lower body a bit. I'm going to grab another swig of water. So I'd like to do some twisted poses next. So twisted lunge is one of my favorites, and it has a lot of different options. Since we have some concern over upper body weight bearing today, there's a lot of good modifications that we can use. So one option, getting a block, making sure that that's handy. And I'll start with our twisted warrior first. So coming hands to our hips, making a big step back with the right foot to warrior one. So warrior one, stacking that left knee over the ankle, right foot is bent, and it's pointing about 45 degrees. And turning the shoulders toward the front of the room. So pressing actively through the feet, and taking our hands to our heart center. In our twisted warrior, exhaling to the left, that same direction as that bent front leg. Inhaling back to center. Exhaling to the left. Inhaling to center. So this is a great twisting option we can use that doesn't use any upper body weight bearing at all. And on our next inhale, let's pivot, coming to the side, and then switch to our warrior one feet, opposite side of the room. So we're bending that right leg, pressing back into that left foot. And exhaling to the right, inhaling to center. And another great thing about this flow is that we're not using our arms to leverage our spine into a twist that it's not really ready for. We're just using our abdominal strength to determine how far we're going to twist. One more. And coming back to the front. Now cartwheeling our hands down, we'll make our way down to the mat. If you have those concerns over upper body tonight, still working on that warrior twist might be another option. Some of these on the mat might be available, but we really want to make sure that we're not pressing too much weight down into our hands. So we'll start by taking our left foot forward, and our right knee can either be down on the mat in a kneeling position. Again, hands to our heart center. Exhaling to the left, the same direction as that bent knee. And this is another option without upper body weight bearing. We can hold this time, enjoying that twist. Now if you don't have those concerns about upper body weight bearing, want to try another option, we can come down to the floor. First we'll realign, and taking our block, placing it kind of where our right foot would be if we were standing. And then shifting the weight forward, bringing that knee far enough back on the right side that we can kind of get the weight into that top edge of the knee. And then taking our right hand to the block, opposite hand coming up to the hip so that we're starting to deepen our twist a little bit. And we also have an option again, taking both hands to heart center or opening them up. And in all these twisting options, we also have that full lunge option, tucking those back toes, floating the knee off of the mat. So we have so many variations that we can take based on what we're looking for, both in our hips, our legs, and our arms. Breathing through the twist. And setting that knee down, realigning. And this is a great opportunity to add a windmill for the arms. So instead of just holding that twist open, opening up the shoulder, inhaling it up, exhaling it back down. So we're making a windmill motion. Meeting with that hand up toward the sky, sweeping it down, moving that block aside, stepping up to all four, or stepping up to our forward fold, inhaling to monkey, exhaling, sitting the hips back, inhaling, circle sweeping up, exhaling, you guessed it, chair pose. Option to add your balance. Inhaling back to mountain. Now we'll move through our twisted lunge on the opposite side. Inhaling, circle sweeping up. Exhaling, swan diving, forward fold. Bringing that left knee down to the mat. We'll start with our kneeling lunge variation, hands at heart center. Exhaling to the right, taking a few breaths here. Inhaling, unwinding. If you'd like, moving into that low variation, we can place the block on the mat, or you can just take the hand down to the mat if you have that reach. Inhaling that right hand to the hip, starting to open up the chest. Maybe it's available to take the hands to heart center. Maybe opening up the hands. Maybe you'd like to move into that windmill. And again, this can be both with that back knee off of the mat or on the mat, your choice. Exhaling the hand down, inhaling it up. And if we're caring for our neck and shoulders today, remembering that it can help to keep the gaze on that hand as it moves through, helping to keep us from overstretching our neck. Meeting with the hand overhead. Setting it down, cartwheeling the hands down, moving that block aside, and let's come down to our child's pose, sinking our hips back. Taking a breather, opening up the knees to make some room for the belly. Breathing into the space in our back between our hips and our ribs. Now for those who are avoiding upper body weight bearing, go ahead and skip this next part. Just come back up to our forward fold. We'll be there in a moment. For the rest of you, tucking the toes, lifting the hips up toward the sky, downward facing dog. Maybe pedaling the heels for a moment. Looking up toward the hands, walking up to forward fold. Inhaling up to monkey. This time we'll come into our chair pose from our monkey. So instead of coming from a standing position, bending the knees, sitting back, keeping that neutral spine just like we had in our monkey, and then lifting the chest up a little bit higher. Inhaling back to mountain. Another good opportunity to shake things out or grab some water. And we'll move to a standing balance next. So if you like to stand somewhere that's off a mat, maybe for a bit more stability, or moving to a wall, finding a place where you're comfortable. And just rooting the weight into the right foot. We'll do a march pose today, which is another standing balance that has some twisting options. So we'll start just by floating the opposite foot up. Maybe this is as far as we come in our march today, and bringing that opposite leg so that it's no higher than where the thigh's parallel to the floor. We've got a nice flex in the foot, like we're gonna step on a stair. Just staying here in our march. If you'd like to add a twist, taking the opposite hand to that knee, starting to guide it across the body, letting the opposite arm come out. And this change in the perspective from looking forward to the side of the room can be a trick. So just having some grace with yourself, remembering your intention for today. Unwinding back to the front. And if you feel like you want to try something, keep going, taking that opposite hand to the knee, opening it up to the side, letting the opposite hand come out. It's okay if you need to take a break. Bringing it back in, setting it down, shaking it out. And switching to the opposite side, left foot rooting down into the mat or the floor. Little micro bend in that standing leg so we're not locking out that knee joint. And then floating the opposite foot up, nice flexed foot, thigh parallel to the floor. Taking some breaths. Option to move into your twist, taking the opposite hand to the knee, guiding it across the body, turning the perspective so the head is toward the side of the room. Unwinding to center, switching hands, opening that leg up to the side. Arm reaches out as a counterbalance. Bringing it back in. Nice control, setting that foot down on the mat. And shaking it out. And just coming back to our mountain pose, we'll work our way down to the mat, inhaling up, exhaling, swan diving, forward fold. And coming to a seated position, through our hands and knees. And finding a seated forward fold. This is a great chance to stretch out anything that's along the back side of the body. So the hamstrings, glutes, low back, neck, it's all of it. And wherever you have the most tension is probably where you're going to feel it. So we have a couple of tools that can help with this if you have them handy. So a block can be handy, and also a strap. If you don't have a strap, something like a long sock or towel can also work. So, and we don't have to use those at all. I just think that they can be kind of nice, especially when you've worked your lower body as hard as we have today. So the block, just placing it between the feet, can kind of give us that security so that the feet stay hip width apart. And then with the strap, just winding it across the feet so that we can just kind of use it as a little guidepost for how far we're going to move forward in our fold. Now we don't have to have those at all. We can just use our hands to walk down the legs, but sometimes that little bit of sensation could be nice. So we'll just come to our neutral seated posture. Inhaling, lifting the crown of the head up toward the sky, feeling like we're elongating the spine. And then remembering that hip hinge where our fingers were in the crease that we did in that standing position. We're doing the same thing now, just from a seated orientation. So inhaling, lifting up, elongating the spine. Exhaling, hinging forward. And I'm not really pulling the strap with my hands. I'm just using it to help give me the sensation of that stability kind of under my feet. So using our sinking style breath, inhaling up, elongating, exhaling, hinging deeper, and repeating that just until you find an edge where you start to feel some stretch. So we're not pulling ourselves down into anything that our bodies don't feel ready for. We're just going to stay in that kind of edge of comfort for about 3 to 5 breaths. Then once our muscles realize what we're asking them to do, they'll sometimes start stretching a little bit more. So let's see if we can repeat that sinking style breath and deepen just a little bit. Inhaling, lengthening, exhaling, hinging down. Maybe it makes sense to let go of the strap if your hands are at the point where you can take hold of the feet. And once you're through that cycle of breath, our last step, as an option, we can take the chin down toward the chest. And that's where we're really going to start to feel the elongation on the back side of the body. Any place that you have tension. And coming out of the pose just like when we got into it. Lifting the head up first. Inhaling, unhinging, walking the hands in. Letting the shoulders come down. You can remove the block and the strap, set them aside. Now, one of my favorite counter postures is an incline plank. This is an upper body weight bearing position, but to me it just seems like it's kind of what my back is asking for after that deep forward fold. So pointing the toes, our hands are behind our hips with the fingers pointing down toward the feet, and pressing into the hands, letting the shoulders come down and the chest lift. And this might be enough for you today as your counter posture. If you'd like to begin to float the hips off of the mat, pressing down into those hips, or down to the hands, letting the hips rise up toward the sky. And setting it down. And let's do another seated stretch. This time, taking our left foot out, bringing the opposite foot in. And we'll find a lateral side stretch where we start to open up the side of the body. Inhaling, lifting the hand up overhead. Exhaling, walking that hand, those fingers down the leg, just until we find a stopping point where we're starting to open up the side of the body. Now, if this is a little intense on the shoulder, we can take that hand to the low back, getting the same benefit of the stretch. Again, maybe after another cycle of 3 to 5 breaths, we can deepen a little bit further. Maybe the hand will walk further down the leg or even take hold of the toes. Again, that hand isn't pulling us down. It's just landing wherever it did based on how far we fold. And releasing, inhaling, unhinging. Switching sides, extending the right foot out, left foot tucks in. And floating the hand up. Exhaling, walking those fingers down the leg, finding that lateral seated stretch. Remembering we always have the option to take that top hand to the low back. And releasing, inhaling, unhinging, walking the hand in. Bringing both feet in the same direction on the mat. Taking our hands behind our thighs, rolling down to the mat, one vertebrae at a time. Bringing our knees to our chest in a hug. Taking one hand to each knee, opening them up, bringing them back together in circles. And getting ready for a twist. We'll meet with those knees to chest. And this is where, again, the strap can be handy. So we'll extend that left leg down to the mat. Our hands are coming to the right knee, and we can shift our hips a little bit to the right so that when we guide the knee across the body, we can keep our shoulders down on the ground. And this might be enough of a twist for you today, or maybe you want to turn the gaze over that hand. Now, if you have a strap and you want to explore a little bit more depth in your twist, we can take that strap around that top foot, extending the leg, taking hold of the strap in that hand, and then letting the leg cross the body. This is a pretty deep twist, so just using our own best judgment about what's best for our body today. If you have that strap and want to try a counter posture, bringing it up, switching the strap into the opposite hand, and letting that leg open up to the side. If you have that range of motion and degree of flexibility that you can take hold of the toes with your hand, go for it. For me, I'm just demonstrating with the strap tonight. And bringing it back in. Bending the knee, bringing it to the chest. Bringing that opposite leg in for a hug. And then we'll work through that same sequence for the opposite side. Stretching the right leg down to the mat. Shifting the hips to the left. Guiding the knee across the body into our twist. The gaze can turn over that opposite hand. Option for those with a degree of flexibility and who have a strap. Placing that strap around that top foot, extending it out. And for those who are in the extended leg version, bringing it back to center. Then switching sides, taking the strap on the opposite hand, opening that leg up. Arm comes out as a counterweight to the leg. And bringing it back in. Bringing the knees into the chest, removing the strap and setting it aside. Rolling those knees together in a big circle, massaging the sacrum against the mat. And the opposite direction. Taking any final postures that you need to complete your practice. Maybe you'd like a bridge with the feet down on the mat and the hips elevated. Maybe you'd like a dead bug with the feet up toward the sky. Finding whatever it is that your body's craving in this last moment before Shavasana. When you're ready, coming to a quiet, still place where we can let go of the work that we've done. Finding stillness for body and mind. If we're caring for low back, maybe we would like to keep the knees bent so that they can rest against each other. Maybe it feels better to let the hips open up and the knees come out in a bound angle, butterfly. Or maybe we would just like to be nice and straightforward in our corpse pose where the feet can gently open up and the arms are alongside the body. Letting go of the work that we've done. Tensing and releasing the hands. The feet point and flex. And then gently fall open, letting it go. Feeling the quadriceps lift the kneecaps up. Feeling the glutes lift the hips. And then releasing, melting down. Feeling the shoulders melt down away from the ears. On our next exhale, feeling all of those abdominal muscles melt down into the mat. Letting the tongue release from the roof of the mouth as the jaw falls open. Letting the eyes fall heavy in the sockets. Expression releasing from the face. Melting away tension between the eyebrows and the forehead, the temples, the scalp. May the long time sun shine above you, guide your way on. Bringing our attention back into the room. Bringing small motions back into the body, wiggling fingers and toes. Rolling the head from side to side. Reaching the arms overhead in a full body stretch. And gathering our knees in a hug. Rolling onto one side in fetal posture. As you're ready, using arm strength to push back up to seated. Meeting with hands at heart center. pausing for a moment in gratitude for our bodies and all they do for us today, on and off the mat. Thank you for inviting me to be your yoga guide today. And remembering the word namaste means the light in me sees the light in you. My spirit acknowledges your spirit. Namaste.